Picture it Los Angeles 2024.
Welcome to Out on the Lanai, the only Golden Girls podcast you're ever going to need to listen to. I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines.
I'm Kerri Doherty, and today we're doing a Beyond Golden Girls episode where we cover the many film and TV projects that the women did outside of the Golden Girls during the course of their illustrious careers. And this week we are watching Estelle Getty's final scripted TV appearance in a cameo on an episode of a short-lived ABC show called It's Like You Know, which maybe aired in 2000 or the episode never aired at all. I can't really tell. I've had a hard time, but it's on YouTube, so someone found it.
It was a very short-lived series. What I love about us doing this is that, like, this is the archive of everything the girls have done. Everything. From Golden Girls to everything. I mean, obviously we're Golden Girls driven. But, like, you can't do a proper archive of all of the girls' work without doing Estelle Getty's final performance, even if it was literally a blink and you'll miss it appearance, which is what happened on this episode.
I was under the impression that she was on the show for more than 39 seconds.
Nope.
I got through like 3/4 of the episode. I had taken all my notes. She was talked about off screen. And then I was like, that's it. Oh, that's it. Okay. Yeah. That's it. All right.
I mean, we'll get into it when we talk about it, but I do have questions or thoughts about like why she might have had less screen time. Cause she's I would argue, no offense to anyone in the show, but I would argue she's the biggest name on this episode. And so, especially at that time. So yeah, I have thoughts and we'll talk about those thoughts.
Yes. I have thoughts as well. I also, this was a show I had never seen before. And have
you heard of that?
No.
Okay. So we can talk about this now. Let's get into some business and then we'll talk about it
we'll talk about it. Cause I have a lot to say about the show and sort of what it says about like Los Angeles and also how it portrays rich people. Yeah. But yes, we do have some housekeeping to attend to. And before we get to housekeeping, but before we get to that, in the GGVIP Club, this upcoming weekend, Sunday, November 17th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, we're having another Golden Girls live watch-along party. We will be watching Sisters with Aunt Angela.
Sisters,
where she moves in.
Sorry.
Sister, never knew how much I missed. Yeah, that was a good one too. Oh. And so we're very, very excited to be watching the Aunt Angela Moves In episode this weekend. So if you're in the GGVIP Club $8 a month tier, join us. If you're in the $5 a month tier, think about upgrading. It's really, really fun. We love these watch-alongs. We chat afterwards. It's really like we're all just hanging out on our own lanais.
And I will be rushing back from visiting
cop strippers on the butt.
I will be rushing back from visiting my family. So it'll be a lovely sort of like welcome back to Los Angeles hangout with all of you. And I would love for all of you to be there. It would be so much fun. And what a great episode we're watching too. What a great episode we're watching.
I know. It is such a good episode.
So good.
So that's in the GGVIP Club. You can check it out at patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast. You can sign up for a free account, but of course you get most of the perks at the $5 and $8 a month tier, which also just helps support us, with the costs of running a podcast for all of you beautiful people.
There are costs.
Speaking of Patreon, so if you are thinking of joining, or if your Patreon, if your renewal is up or something and you have to re-sign up, do it on the Patreon website, because I guess now if you are going through Apple and doing it through the downloaded app through Apple, they're taking 30%, which comes out of our like, we don't see that. So if you do happen to sign up for Patreon, go to patreon.com, go to the website, do not sign up on the app, or else they will be taking a 30% cut.
Yeah, we strongly encourage that. I mean, obviously, do what you need to do to make your life easier, but we strongly encourage you to go to the patreon.com app
Yes, because
it's
then that 30% that is going towards the creators versus Apple, a
because
giant
Patreon already
corporation.
takes out, which Patreon's also a corporation, let's be real, but like they also take out a bit too. So yeah, it definitely hurts creatives when you try to support them through the Apple version of Patreon. So yeah, do it through patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast.
Yes. And so in terms of the schedule for the rest of this month, we will have a new episode up next week and a new Rusty Anchor happy hour next week. But then the following week, the week of Thanksgiving, we are going to be taking a much needed break off. So there will be no new episodes that week. The two of us have got to get some rest. We're going to spend some time with our loved ones, just kind of decompressing. So, you know, if you need the GG, listen, find an old episode you love, watch the show. I know some of you all are connecting on Patreon in the chat.
Love that.
Maybe do a live watch along with each other. I know that some people have talked about doing a live watch along. So maybe
what if we start a romance?
Do that.
What if we create a romance between people?
I mean, who says we haven't already? Is that you? Reach out.
I love it.
Let us know how you met.
Also, we should just, before we get to anything with this, well, we have two things to talk about. We have this, and then of course the world. But the live show that we're doing on December 7th, we're having to reschedule it for scheduling situations. Life has exploded in a way that was unavoidable, and so
things out of our control.
Dynasty is very accommodating, and we will be rescheduling for in the new year. Fortunately, no one could buy tickets yet, so like no one's out any money. But we will be rescheduling in the new year. The show will be bigger and better than ever. We will have great guests, so please, obviously, stay tuned for that. But we'll do other holiday things on the podcast, obviously.
Yes, and if you've signed up to be one of the first ones to find out on our Patreon page about when tickets are available, you will still be the first one to find out when tickets are available.
Yes,
because we will likely sell out as we did last time. But yes, we're having to reschedule, but we're very excited to be kicking off 2025 with some beautiful Golden Girls greatness.
And we should address the orange elephant in the room only because of the state of the world. And obviously last week's episode, it came out after the election, but we recorded it before the election. So this was the first time we're recording after the election. Clearly, this is not a political podcast. We're not going to go into crazy politics or anything, but we should just say we know some people are feeling some things right now. And I just want to say to people out there who are feeling some things, however, whatever you're feeling, this is a community of people who come together because of the Golden Girls. And we use it as a distraction, sometimes to distract us from the state of the world, sometimes to distract us from our families, sometimes just to bring a little joy, and sometimes a chaotic day. And I want to encourage all of you, no matter how you're feeling, to do the thing that Kerri and I try to do every single week, which is come together and do a deep dive on these women that we love so, so much, and let them be a bit of a light in what can be sometimes a dark period. So that's, I feel like that's what I want to say.
Yeah. I think, we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be here bringing you Golden Girls greatness and connecting with all of you every week. That's not going to change. And
wouldn't it be wild if it did? Wouldn't it be wild if we were like, well, the election sucked. We're done.
We're done. We're out. No. And I've gotten some really nice messages from people who both, in recent days and just sort of at moments in their lives where they say that being a part of the Golden Girls community and having this podcast has really gotten them through some dark times. The Golden Girls got me through my darkest time in my life, and the community has as well. So we are here. We are here for each other. We are a loving community, and that's never going to change.
You know what I posted the day after the election, I posted the meme of Doherty on the phone saying, "No, I will not have a nice day." And I just felt like it just personified my mood and other moods of the day. And it was cute. It was fun. And I loved the comments underneath it and how people came together to agree with Doherty, and mostly. So that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah.
You can go like that on my Instagrables.
Okay, so it's like
Can I?
Which I guess.
Can I say something about this series? Because I remember when the show came out, it was everyone, this was actually a much talked about show for two reasons. Primarily because of Jennifer Grey. First off, the fact that Jennifer Grey was playing herself. That was a big deal. And it was sort of like kind of a playing with Hollywood sort of inside joke situation, which was cute. But the biggest news that came from this, and I remember this was all over Entertainment Tonight with Mary Hart and those $1 million insured legs. Thank you. That everyone was talking about how different Jennifer Grey looked because she very much so had, and it was in the show too. It was joked about in the show, not on this episode, but in other episodes. She had a, what do they call it with the nose? A rhinoplasty or something?
Rhinoplasty.
Yeah, where and because of that, it dramatically altered sort of, even though it was just her nose, it changed her image, her face structure in a way that she looked very different from obviously what she is most famous for, which is Dirty Dancing. So that was the big thing when the show came on. Everyone was talking about Jennifer Grey's nose, which I feel like she probably did not want that. That was probably not the intent of her starring in this show, but it was a joke in the show too. So like it became it is a thing. But yeah, that was what the show was initially known for.
I did also read that role was originally offered to Jennifer Beals, right? Flashdance.
Yeah, I think so. I read that
and
too.
she had turned it down. And then they were like, well, what other Jennifer can we go to? So they went to Jennifer Grey.
And what's wild
who is fabulous on this show.
She is fabulous. Jennifer Beals or Stephen Eckholt, who's on this series, plays Robbie. He went on to have a role on, I believe, The L Word with Jennifer Beals.
Ah.
So there you go.
I think he also, wait a second, where is my...
He's in so many things.
Yes. So the cast, okay, we'll get into the cast in a second. I'm going to go back up to the top of my notes because I do want to talk about, okay, I'm going to go, I'll come back to that. So if you've never seen the show, the description of it is
Chances
New York
are
writer.
You haven't.
Yeah. New York writer Arthur Garment moves to LA to write a book about his hatred of the city and its vapid and superficial culture, but the longer he remains there, the fonder he becomes of it. This guy was, by the time, so the episode that we watched, it's season 2, episode 17, Lust for Life is the name of the episode. The number one on the call sheet, this guy, Arthur, he was barely in the show. Did you notice that? The New York guy?
I did.
So I feel like they very quickly were like, oh, we kind of ran out of stuff.
Chris
that
Eigenman,
was interesting.
Who played him?
What's that?
Chris Eigenman is the actor.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He was the only one I didn't recognize.
Oh,
on
really?
The poster too. Yeah, I didn't know him from anything.
Yeah, he's a character actor. He was big like in the 90s, basically, in that sort of realm. But it was him, Evan Handler, Jennifer Grey, and Stephen Eckholt. And those all of them, I mean, obviously, Evan Handler went on to Sex and the City fame, of course.
Yeah, so
Jennifer
he played
Grey
Harry, Charlotte's husband.
Is famously Joel Grey's, Academy Award winner Joel Grey's daughter. And they have, I mean, Google some of those stories because they have stories. He wrote a book. It's fascinating. And then Stephen was just sort of like, I mean, he was on Friends. He was on West Wing. He was on so many shows.
For those Friends fans, so he played Mark, the guy who worked with Rachel in season 2, who ended up sort of like Ross got really, really jealous. And also AJ Langer, Rayanne from My So-Called Life, is also in this show is so good.
I didn't even recognize her. Did not even recognize her.
Oh, you didn't? I thought she looked exactly the same. I was like, oh, Rayanne. So this show was created by a man named Peter Melman. He was a Seinfeld writer, which as soon as I saw that, I was like, this makes sense because if Seinfeld is known for having like very, very short scenes sometimes because they do a lot of storylines.
Yeah.
And this, I think I clocked, there was one scene, it was, I think, like 21 seconds long. And I was like,
Estelle Getty's scene.
Her scene was also very short, but there was one even shorter than that.
Wild.
But yeah, the show is giving me kind of like Suddenly Susan, Caroline in the City kind of vibes.
So
these kind of ensemble-y.
The show obviously did not do well because it only aired for like 2 seasons, but half of a season. Like
on
the
ABC
second season
from 99 to 2000.
Yeah. And what is so fascinating about this show is that this was at the dawn of reality television. We're talking, obviously on CBS, it was Survivor, Amazing Race, those shows. But then on ABC, this was Regis Philbin, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire era. This was like they gave Regis every piece of airtime possible. He dominated prime time with this. And so like literally nobody was watching sitcoms. The only sitcoms people were watching were on NBC, and ABC was like a drought for sitcoms. Like it was just not, it was not happening on ABC because everyone was into Regis, which I get, even though Regis always kind of annoyed me. That's a hot take that I know is going to piss some people off, but I'm just saying it. Regis, a bit obnoxious. Maybe I see some of myself in him. I don't know, but I hate him.
I don't know. I'm working through it. My sort of biggest takeaway from this show, everybody in the show is wealthy.
Yes.
And like very wealthy.
Yeah.
Very, very wealthy that they can like afford a $4 million Van Gogh, like nothing. And the characters are also portrayed.
They're not
are
likable.
meant to be portrayed, I believe, as likable, as relatable.
But they're not.
I know. And like with Seinfeld, you get it. They're all kind of bad people and it's very obvious and everybody's, but you like them. There was something about these people that I felt like there wasn't enough, like they didn't lean in enough to the unlikability.
Yeah.
And they weren't relatable. So I just found myself like watching and I was like, I'm just not engaged with this.
The only one who was likable enough to me. I mean, I thought Jennifer Grey was likable enough, but Stephen Eccles was like, he was amiable in a way. And maybe that's just sort of because he intentionally is the sort of like good looking, like, likable actor-y person. He played a lot of those roles in the 90s and aughts. So like maybe that's why he was likable, but he was sort of vanilla. Whereas Evan Handler's character, not likable. The writer, not likable. Jennifer Grey, borderline likable, but also kind of like, take off those tiny glasses. She had the 90s. She had the 90s sunglasses that were like little round specks. They were so Courtney Cox first season of Friends, but not as in character, just Courtney Cox doing promo for Friends. It was sort of that era of sunglasses, and I always just want to take them off their faces because I hate them.
It's also like that very like early aughts of LA culture where like yoga is a big thing that everybody's talking about and soy milk and it's like, oh, such an LA thing.
Yeah.
And so that kind of made me laugh, but one thing that we were graced with in this episode was not only Jennifer Grey was playing herself, but we also got Maureen McCormick playing herself, aka Marsha Brady,
and Estelle Getty playing herself. I mean, this is like an actor.
Oh, and of course,
episode.
and Estelle Getty playing herself. This is a Golden Girls podcast, everybody. Somewhere behind me, I have Maureen McCormick's autobiography, and
she's
she talks about. She seems, it's been a long time since I've read it, but she definitely went into the some details about back in her Brady Bunch days with was it Barry Williams who played Greg?
Yeah.
About how they would sneak off and do stuff.
Do a little tickle. I think she is the only one that came out of the Brady Bunch. Well, and Florence Henderson came out normal. You know what I mean? Because I feel like of particularly, well, maybe I don't know much about the boys, but the girls, no. Like the baby one, what was her name? Cindy?
Mm-hmm.
She's
Susan Olsen, is that her name?
Do a quick Google and you'll be like, ooh. And I mean that in the most loving of way. It has nothing to do with whatever, she looks amazing, she is amazing, all those things, but just do a Google and you'll be surprised. And then, especially after the election, hint, hint. And then the other one, the middle one, what was her name? I forget the actor's name, but the middle one, not the oldest.
Jan.
Jan, thank you. There's a clip of her on Donahue or something, some talk show, and someone asks her something and she just sits there and she's like, I don't care to answer that. It's just so
So what?
No, she's a little feisty. She's a little feisty when it comes to the Brady Bunch moment, which whatever. But the Maureen, she's in it. She's like, I'm gonna do this. This is gonna be fun. Let's have a good laugh, everyone.
Yeah, I don't. I enjoyed her on it, and we are going to take a quick break. But when we come back, And before we dive into the episode, I also want to talk about, because this was Estelle Getty's last on-screen scripted performance, I just kind of want to run down the other women's final performances. There's something really poetic about when you're on their IMDb page and you see that top credit, that's the last one.
Yeah.
So I also just kind of want to talk about those for the other women as well. And then we'll get into this wild show.
Then let's take a break and get into the wild, show,
So like we said before the break, this was Estelle Getty's last IMDb credit, her last appearance on a scripted show. This doesn't mean that she didn't make appearances as herself. She was obviously probably out in public. She probably would have filmed this in like 1999, 2000, and she passed away in 2008. So she spent sort of the last 8 or so years of her life not working, kind of out of the spotlight.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when we get into it, but I feel like there was maybe another scene that Estelle was supposed to be in on this show, and they just sort of like mention why she's not there, and I was kind of curious about that. But
there's a lot. We don't even need to go into too much of the plot of this episode because it is kind of random. I mean, we will, but like it is kind of, you can sum it up real quick. But I do feel like there was more to Estelle Getty than what we saw. Like there was more on paper than what we saw.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe she was struggling, or
I don't know,
she did want to do it. Maybe she just didn't want to do a lot. Or
I don't think it was that at all. I don't think it had anything to do with her health issues at all, because of the way the show is structured and the way this episode played out, I feel like it was a cutting room edit. Like I feel like she actually probably filmed something, or something was cut. I don't think it was anything to do with memorizing, because even the lines that even in this scene, it was one sentence. So like, feed her that, quick cut. It's an easy shoot with Estelle Getty, and you got a massive star there that's sitting at the table with them. So like it wouldn't be hard for her to do that. So I don't think it was a health thing. I think it was actually the show's doing, in my opinion.
But there was a scene after, so we see Estelle, then there's a scene after where all the women are gathering and they're like, where's Estelle? And the other one's like, oh, she got wasted at Sky Bar last night and the security had to kick her out. And I was like, well, they're acknowledging that she's not there. She could have been in that scene. But maybe there was,
well, she did have another moment. Like I think this cut, because I mean this show, like you said, there's scenes, so there's one scene that's 21 seconds. So like I have a feeling, and also too, that this was a show, I mean, think about the time period in which this episode came out. It's one of their last episodes. I'm sure they know the writing's on the wall. No one's watching this show. So I have a feeling they were focusing on ways to make this episode exciting by focusing on the core cast and et cetera,
getting these big TV guest stars. So this was Estelle's last scripted IMDb credit, and she still shines in her moment, and we are going to highlight Estelle because that's what this podcast is all about.
She looked
so good. Oh. So when I went on the other women's IMDb pages, so their last on-screen scripted roles, B. Arthur's was in 2005 when she did Curb Your Enthusiasm as Larry David's mom.
Oh my God. What an amazing final credit to have. I mean, if anything bestows the greatness that is B. Arthur, it is her appearance on Curb Your Enthusiasm. It is just like Estelle in this episode. It is literally 10 seconds, basically. Like it's nothing. It's a very quick segment, but it is just Larry David going to heaven. He runs into his mom and she's like, yo, smuck. And it's just so perfect for B. Arthur. And to go out on a show that is just as iconic as like Seinfeld. I mean, it's a beloved show, Curb Your Enthusiasm. I love that as B's last credit. I love it.
Yeah. So that she did in 2005, and then B ended up, of course, passing away in 2009. Rue McClanahan in 2009, a year before she passed away, she did an episode of the show Meet the Browns, which was created by Tyler Perry. And Betty White, this one I actually think is the sweetest because I actually watched this. So we know Betty passed away in 2022. In 2019, she lent her voice as the character of Bitey White to an animated short called Forky Asks a Question. Forky, of course, being a character from Toy Story.
Yeah.
And Forky had this animated, just a series of shorts where Forky Forky was curious and would ask genuine questions. And there's an episode called What is Love? And Forky's asking, what is love? And playing characters, playing these like animated toys in this episode are Betty White, who plays Bitey White, a baby bear's sort of teething toy, Mel Brooks, Carol Burnett, and Carl Reiner.
Also,
are all teaching kids and adults what love is, and it's so beautiful.
The fact that Betty White's final credit is a Disney credit, and we know if you go back and you look at the estate of, we did an episode going over our favorite products that we're at, or favorite things from Betty's estate sale, and in the estate sale, if you thumb through the book, you'll see lots and lots and lots of Disney stuff. That woman was a Disney queen. She is a Disney legend. Officially, she was awarded the Disney legend status, but she also just loved Disney. She had the trinkets and the tchotchkes of Disney all over that estate. So the fact that her final credit was with a company and a brand that she loved so much, that warms my heart. That makes me happy. And of course, with those people.
And huge heavy hitters of comedy as well.
Yeah.
Like,
her old friend, Carol Burnett.
Yeah. That to me feels so just appropriate for being Betty's last credit. And same with B, really.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Like playing Larry David's mom on this very, very like highly respected show.
Well, and it also just speaks to the canon of sort of B. Arthur's, I think, resume in a way. All of these women's last credits, I think, really speak to who they were as actors. So, like, B. Arthur was a great actress, yes, but also she was an icon of television. Her persona was just as big as Larry David, as a Jerry Seinfeld. I mean, she was in that class of persona known TV personalities that sort of, it went above her talent in a lot of ways, and she used it to her advantage in an episode like that. Betty White, of course, Disney, we love that. Like, that's perfect for her. It's a perfect ending for her. Rue McClanahan, she was a working actor. She was a, what do they call it, a journeyman actor, where she loved to act, and it's so you feel that from that B movie that we watched of hers not long ago. I forget the name of it now, but it was horrible. But she was fantastic in it. To everything else that she did, from being on Wicked on Broadway. I mean, Rue McClanahan was in Wicked. So when you go see Wicked on November 22nd or whenever it comes out in theaters, just know that Rue McClanahan was in that musical as, I forget the teacher's name now, but she's like the female professor. She's Michelle Yeoh's part in the movie. And she was just sort of an actor's actor, which is, I love that about her, because she just loved to act and she was so good at it. And then, of course, Estelle Getty, we all know how much Estelle Getty loved being famous. When she got famous from the Golden Girls, I mean, B. Arthur says that joke in some interview or something where Estelle Getty came back season 2 and her hair was done and she had the whole thing. And that woman loved being famous, and she loved her fans, and she loved being known, especially at that point in her life, because it was new to her. She became famous late in life, and so she relished in it. So the fact that her final credit was as herself shows that she was at the top of her game. She was loved for being who she is as an actor, and that is such a testament, I think, to what she was so proud about how much she worked to get to where she got, I love that.
Yeah. Can you imagine like Estelle Getty shooting the pilot of the Golden Girls and being like, Estelle, one day you're going to actually play yourself on television, because
you're
that's how
big enough to play
that's
yourself.
How beloved you're going to be. That is a really sweet thing.
Yeah. So sweet.
So this show, like we were saying about rich people, what's interesting about rich people is on television is that these days we really lean into them being unlikable. They're still rootable. You still root for these people, but they're very unlikable. If you look at Schitt's Creek, the family from that, if you look at Maya Rudolph in Loot, these shows where you have these wildly out of touch people, And in this show,
even on the nanny, even the family on the nanny. I mean, it plays. There was that juxtaposition between the real working class Fran Drescher and then the family and the dad and all of that. It's just like you play with that, and it's a fun dynamic.
And maybe in season 1, where Chris Eichmann's character, the writer from New York, and again, he was barely in this, so I don't know what his character was like, but maybe there was a little bit more friction because maybe he didn't come from money. But in this episode, so Evan Handler, so Harry from Sex and the City and Mark from Friends, the two of them, so Evan Handler, he can't decide if he wants to buy a $4 million Van Gogh. And Mark from Friends is like, I don't know, I don't really get art. And then they decide to buy it, but they split it. And the problem of the episode is that the two of them can't decide where to put this Van Gogh that they've bought. They're like haphazardly leaning it on the couch. And so they get like a lawyer to draft a prenup. And I'm like, this is the relatable character problem of the episode.
I mean, if you know anything about sort of the 90s economy, it was praised for sort of like, you know, obviously people were making money and they were buying houses and loans were going out and all these things. So the excess of the 90s, we're seeing it in this fully.
Yeah. I did appreciate there was a Monet versus Manet joke, which Jasper de Kimmel makes in The Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Which I don't know, maybe it's lazy writing or maybe it's just.
It made me think of mayonnaise and how much I love mayonnaise with fries. And we had a discussion the other day when we went out to dinner with a friend about the use of mayonnaise and fries and how, I mean, Michael thinks it's very strange. I love it. It's delicious. Dipping a fry, a really salty fry in mayonnaise. Ooh, nothing better.
See, now if there were a character on this program that was not elite and thought of mayonnaise and wanted to talk about that would have been very funny.
Thank you.
As a juxtaposition to like a trust fund baby and whatever the other guy does, to be like, no, we're talking about Manet, like who painted like Olympia, who she looks. That was one of my favorite. I had to take all these art history classes in college. Well, I didn't have to. I guess I elected to take them. But Manet's Olympia, she looks like Julianne Moore. Just Google it. Manet's Olympia. She's like this really like strong woman. She's got her feet up and her feet are dirty. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to put dirty feet on the bed. But I always was like, oh, that looks like Julianne Moore.
Oh. Okay.
So,
I see Julianne Moore in that. Oh yeah, and she's naked too, which Julianne Moore is often naked in things.
Nude.
Yeah. And she's covering up her nasty bits. And okay. I get it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway.
And you know what? You know what would make that painting better? A bowl of fries and a little thing of mayonnaise for her to dip in.
A little thing of mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise. Oh, there you go. You got a stand-up bit somewhere. Also, to go back to Evan Handler's character, for a guy who can just like throw $4 million at a Van Gogh without even like winking, his house is not impressive at all.
Not at all. Someone, it looks like an apartment in Los Feliz that I've seen from people who do well, but like it's not if you're dropping $4 million randomly, you don't live in a place like that. You don't live
like it looks like one of the houses somebody on Modern Family might have lived in, which is fine. I'm not turning my nose up at that. But you have $4 million to drop as if you're like gonna buy a case of Spindrift on Amazon. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I love that Spindrift.
Yeah, the men play tug of war at one point over the painting while like a very unimpressed woman who's on a date with one of them has fallen asleep on the couch. I was like, yup.
Yeah, I would too.
So that's kind of that story. It's like, it's real boring.
It is boring.
The story that I did kind of like.
Jennifer Grey's story. I liked
Jennifer
her
Grey's
storyline.
Story.
That was good.
So has her car in an auto body shop and she is convinced that the mechanic is this guy named, what was his name? Evan the Dreadful.
But he's played by, the mechanic is played by Billy Gardell, who obviously Mike and Molly fame and other shows as well. I mean, he's a big CBS Chuck Lorre staple actor, and he's very good. And he just recently lost a lot of weight too.
I didn't even realize that was him.
Yeah.
So yeah, she is convinced that he's a mechanic, but that he secretly is this guy named Evan the Dreadful, who, by the way, sounds like the name of the henchman of like Johnny No Thumbs when Rose and Sophia were selling bacon, lettuce, and potato sandwiches.
Oh.
But she is convinced that he is the same guy that he's like living under an alias, and he's the same guy who, like, back in the 80s, like, tried to like ruin her reputation in the club scene again.
Well, you know what I have to say, and this is the Jew. This is the Jew in me that I have to say this as a. I do think you can make jokes about everything. The play on Ivan the Terrible, Evan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible is a horrible, horrible, horrible murderer of the Holocaust, nickname for a guard in the Holocaust. And the whole episode hinged, and also, I mean, Jennifer Grey, Jewish. So, I mean, I get it. I get what they're doing with this. But the whole time, every time I heard Evan the Terrible, all I was thinking about was the Holocaust, which is not something when you're watching a sitcom on ABC that leads into Who Wants to Be a Millionaire that I want to think about.
Yeah, not imagery you really want to invoke. I mean,
only people who know that are going to think that. So it's a niche audience. But I'm just saying, for anyone you listening, if you hear Evan the Terrible, it's a play on Ivan the Terrible, and Google that and you'll be sad for a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's like trying to ID this guy. And so she's like, you know what? You know who will remember him is Maureen McCormick, a.k.a. Marsha Brady. She's going to help me ID this guy. And I do want to play a moment of the two of them in the car. One, because they call Estelle Getty a club whore, which I thought was really funny. But also, it's just really fun to see two women, one who was like really iconic in the 70s, another that was really iconic in the 80s, playing themselves and sort of just having this moment in
having fun
TV history where they're playing themselves in a car together. It was just kind of nice to watch.
Yeah.
Evan the Dreadful? I can't believe it. I had nightmares about him for years. Maureen, it may not be him. Just hearing the name, Evan the Dreadful, it feels like it's 1938 all over again. 1988. Whatever. Who else would be able to identify him? Well, definitely Estelle Getty. Estelle Getty? Are you kidding? She was a bigger club whore than any of us.
That was a 25-second scene, by the way.
Yeah.
That was the whole scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is something about Maureen McCormick's speaking voice that I find incredibly pleasant to listen to.
I do too. I find her pleasant in general. She's just I mean, there's a nostalgic factor with her, of course, but she's just a pleasant presence in general.
And she's got this higher register up here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about it that's just like, it's really, really soft and really likable to me. I don't know.
See, that's
I enjoyed it.
That voice, what you just did though, a little terrifying. Put in a different context.
Well, you know me. You know that
Yes.
because of Little Oreo, I'm constantly Mickey.
Yeah.
Oh, Zelda. Ba, 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 ba. And ba, 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 ba. And then I'm Elmo. I'ma say. And I do it all the time, all
Wow.
day. And then she
Wow.
wants him to be goofy. Gosh.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I do a
Anyway,
good Goofy.
I really love
I do
doing
a good
it,
Donald
but-
Duck. I do a good Donald Duck.
Go ahead. We've done this. I'm having a flashback. I had a flashback in the can. No, we've done this. Maybe it was on Rusty Anchor Happy Hour. We
Maybe.
definitely did our Donald Ducks, and I told you that I thought that Donald Duck was voiced by Tony Danza. You'll have to listen to the Rusty Anchor Happy Hour to get the rest of that story.
Find that one. yeah.
Okay. Wait, where was I? Okay. So yeah, that was a 25-second scene. So they're like, Estelle Getty would know. They end up in a diner, which again feels very Seinfeldian.
Yeah.
And this is Estelle Getty's entire.
Before we get to Estelle, we should take a little break. But yes, we're gonna set this up because it's random and weird. But yeah, we'll take a little break and we'll come right back.
Okay. And we're back. So before we play Estelle Getty's 39 seconds on this sitcom episode. She looks adorable.
She looks so good. She's so tiny.
She's so tiny. I couldn't tell if she was wearing a wig or not.
Oh, I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I think that was her hair. I'm pretty sure
it was the most beautiful, like, you know, when the snow falls and before anybody's peed in it yet?
Yes.
Or stepped on it.
Yes. Okay. We're
it
doing
was
that.
like that color of snow.
Well, and she has, I mean, it might have been a wig. I'm looking at it now. It might have been a wig. I don't know. But I will say her makeup is gorgeous. She has a beautiful blush going on. Her eyebrows are fully painted in. And she's wearing, I can't tell what's on this shirt. I think it's shoes. It's tiny little shoes. And it looks almost like country western in a way.
Yeah.
And,
like, is there a bolo tie or am I imagining a bolo tie?
Oh, there might be. I don't know. I can't really see it that well, but there might be a bolo tie. But what I will say is, and what I love about this is there's shots that cut back to Estelle as Jennifer and Maureen are like saying things, and it's almost like she's reacting to the audience. It's almost like she's giving an eye roll to the audience, like, "Can you believe I'm doing this?" Like there's a level of physical acting, facial acting that's coming from Estelle that is really enjoyable and pleasant. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it must have been nice because I don't think Estelle had been in front of a live studio audience for a minute. And so for her to also
she had done just the year before, and I believe that was a live studio audience, Ladies Man. That was Betty White's show.
Oh, that's right. Wow,
yeah.
That's right. It was only the year before.
And then she had done The Nanny a couple of years before that as well. So like she had done studio audience stuff and within the time. Not a lot.
Sure.
Yeah.
Regardless, I'm curious to know if that was where I know that she struggled when she did sitcoms, when she had a lot of lines, because the lines changed a lot as they do. But I wonder if just being in that environment and being in front of a live studio audience reminded her of her theater days, and if she was sort of like I wonder if that's sort of where she felt most at home. But
I think so. Well, let's play the clip.
Yeah, let's play it.
It does look like him, but I can't be certain. It's really tough to tell from a photo.
Just take your time.
I know I could make a positive idea if I could just feel him grab my ass.
Estelle, why don't you take a look?
Oh my God, it's him, Evan the Dreadful.
That's it. And the clip quality is not great because, again, no one is like, I think Kerri and I are potentially the only people in the entire world who has watched this episode of television in the last 2 months, maybe. So, yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like I said, that was her whole scene, and then the next scene when the women confront the man, one of them says, "Where's Estelle?" And I think it's Jennifer Grey who says, "Oh, she can't make it. She was out at Sky Bar last night. They had to drag her out at 3 a.m." Which, like, what fun. Can you imagine?
I can.
Imagine getting drunk with Estelle Getty.
Oh my God, what a dream. Can you, there was I forget her name. There was a woman who would go to Studio 54, and she was like an Estelle Getty older woman, and she would dance the night away with everyone. And she has, I'm going to Google her name. I forget, but, and she's in the film 54 too, which is low-key one of my, I love that movie. But she would, or her name was Sally Lippman, and she was known as Disco Sally. Everyone listening would be
love that.
Like Disco Sally. She was an attorney who visited Studio 54 regularly, and she would just dance and wear fun outfits and be surrounded by gay men. And it reminded me a little bit of like the mental picture that this episode of television was painting of Estelle Getty. And if I was a gay man walking into a gay bar and I saw Estelle Getty on roller skates, rolling around in the middle of the dance, or even just bouncing around in the middle of the dance floor, I would lose my shit.
I would lose my shit. I would lose my mind.
The hottest man in the world could walk up to me and say, I'll do whatever you want. And I would tell him, excuse me, Estelle Getty's on the dance floor. And I would go to Estelle, and I would give up that man for Estelle Getty, because that is how awesome it would be.
I don't care if I'm wearing, what's an expensive shoe? Louboutins. Are those expensive?
Yeah.
Right?
Louboutins. Louboutins. Christian Louboutin.
Sure. If I were wearing the shoes with the red undersides,
Jimmy Choo.
I would take them off my feet and I would give them to Estelle if her feet were hurting, but she were like, hey, I need to put some new shoes on. I would do it, and I would walk home barefoot just to be in the same room as Estelle Getty.
Me too. My God. Oh God, that would be incredible. My thing is, like, on this set, I mean, Estelle was really only around Maureen and Jennifer for the most part.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it must have been so great for them to have Estelle on set and just sort of being around. Because here you have, I would say 2 television icons and 1 Hollywood, a child of a Hollywood icon, and iconic in her own right, too.
Yeah.
That must have been... That just must have been fun for the studio audience to see,
I know. I would love to know, as they're sitting down and they're getting ready to roll the cameras and they're getting the audience quiet and they're adjusting the last light and they're slating, what was the conversation that happened between the 3 of them? And, because I think at that point, Jennifer Grey was probably new to sitcoms and sort of shooting in front of a live studio audience. And then, you have Maureen McCormick, who that was her entire childhood and into her teenage years. And then you have Estelle Getty, who that was her entire life in her later years. Mm-hmm. It's just what a fun thing to see Sophia Petrillo and Marsha Brady and Baby. Yeah, not the pig baby, but the other baby.
Yeah.
Sitting together in a diner.
So that's great. I have to give a plug to a Jennifer Grey movie that I hatefully loved and watched in a really sardonic and not excitable way. It's Jennifer Grey played Gwen Shamblin in a Lifetime movie called Starvin' for Salvation. If you know anything about Gwen Shamblin, there's that HBO doc. She was the preacher who her whole thing was about people losing weight. And so she had to be really, really skinny, and she had the really big teased up hair. Just Google Gwen Shamblin and Google Jennifer Grey as Gwen Shamblin, and your day will be made for it's fascinating. And Sarah Paulson is actually playing her in a HBO thing, I think. So that's gonna be incredible. That's going to be incredible. But Jennifer Grey as Gwen was less incredible and more cringe funny, but yet also an enjoyable 2 hours that I spent watching this Lifetime movie. Oh, I bet, and Estelle would have loved it.
I believe it. Well, that's pretty much the episode. It was, I am, just for the sake of being more aware of sitcom throughout, sitcom history. I guess I'm glad I watched this. I'm always happy to see Estelle.
No, I'm glad that we watched it for Estelle. I'm glad that we honored Estelle's last performance and said, because this is, like I said at the beginning, this is an archive of the girls, and we need to do everything that they've done, and honor that work.
Well, should we take a little break and come back with our golden takeaways?
We should. Yes, we'll be right back. And we are back with our golden takeaways, which is a nugget of truth or inspiration that you can apply to your life or the lives of our listeners. Kerri, what's your golden takeaway from this episode?
I am going to plug Maureen McCormick's book, which I found on my bookshelf right behind me. Maureen McCormick, and here's the story. It's a fun read from what I remember. I feel like maybe I need to dive into this again. And of course, you need to get all of the Golden Girls Yeah. I just open up to a random page and it says, we met two gay guys on the trail. I gave them a handful of hallucinogenic truffles. So get this book.
I'm telling you, she just seems like she's fun.
That sounds fun. Hallucinogenic truffles.
Oh,
sure.
if I ran into Maureen
Sure,
McCormick
Jan.
and she gave me drugs on a trail, I would definitely be like, okay, I'll do this. Let's do this. This is for
What
the
a
story.
story.
This is for the story. Wow. I love
All right.
that.
What's your golden takeaway?
My golden takeaway from this episode is, I mean, I hate that we had to watch this on YouTube because, you know, Estelle's estate will get no penny from us for watching it. But apparently that there are the reruns of this do air in like Argentina or something. Like there's like it's being played somewhere in the world in South America. So I doubt we have an Argentinian audience. If you do listen and you are from Argentina, please comment on Instagram and let us know. But if you happen to see this episode on television in Argentina, watch it for Estelle. Just watch it for Estelle. Give her that penny. I don't know how that works with residuals in Argentina, but whatever. That's my golden takeaway.
That is a, I was going to say beautiful golden takeaway.
It's less beautiful and it's more like, and just, you know, watch TV. My golden takeaway is watch TV.
Watch TV in Argentina. Oh my gosh, you guys. This has been another episode of Out on the Lanai. Thank you all so much for joining us and being a part of our little Golden Girls community. And we will see you back here next week for more Golden Girls greatness. And remember, you can check out the GGVIP Club over at patreon.com/Golden Girls Podcast.
That's so true. And we're also a part of Mom Moguls of Media. So you know what to do with that. And you can follow us on social media at Golden Girls Pod on Twitter, Out on the Lanai Official on Instagram, Golden Girls Pod on the Facebookals, and I am HAlanScott / Sadie Pines on everything.
And I'm Squidsy on Instagram and Squid Eat Squid on Twitter. And if you want to do something else nice for the podcast, you can leave us a rating and review wherever you get this podcast because it helps more people discover us and join our lovely kick-ass community of Golden Girls fans.
And remember,
as always,
stay
golden.
That's all.
Out on the Lanai is not endorsed by Whit Thomas Harris Productions, Touchstone Television, Disney, or any of its subsidiaries. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only.
All names, pictures, audio, and video clips of the Golden Girls are registered trademarks and or copyrights of their respective trademark and or copyright holders.